Hi everybody, and welcome to this 6th edition of the Portage Dev Diary. There's a lot to cover today, so we're just going to get stuck into it. What I wanted to show you was some enhancements to the strategy or strategic profile. So in my example here, I'm an aged care provider, and I've sort of completed all of this stuff here. But there's a couple things that I've improved on this page. One is the editing experience in each of these little text boxes, so you can make them bigger. It also understands that there's lists and you can add headings and so on. But the other thing I did do was add in this little enhance button, which will take what you've put in and kind of rephrase it in a way that is a little bit more structured and will help the large language model work with your content. So you can see here I've kind of described in a bit of a narrative fashion what the strategy or what the goals are. So you can just hit this button, and what it's going to do is reformat those into a bulleted list and try to prompt you to provide a little bit more information, to give a little bit more specifics, which are super helpful for the large language model, because the more specific you can be, the more tailored and tuned its recommendations will be for you. So there's some work to do, I think, on the user experience here, but just wanted to show that. I think we'll continue with that kind of idea, that there'll be little buttons here and there to kind of enhance what you put in according to some best practices. So let's move on. I wanted to show some big developments in the boards. Now you'll notice that the look and feel has changed a bit. Things were a little bit beige last time. The reason is I've adopted a more generic framework for the colors, and these are just the default colors that come out of the box. And the reason why I've done that is to make it a bit easier down the line to put out some different themes. So we've already got the dark themes, but this could be different themes, different colored themes, and so on. So I think we've sort of taken a bit of a step back, but we'll definitely come back and fix that up later. So let me just make myself a little bit smaller and get out of the way. So let's create a new board, and there's been some really big changes, so that's why I wanted to just start from fresh. Now there will be, I guess, a guided experience. So we've clicked on do a scenario project. We might have some initial nodes on the canvas to help you get started, but right now it's just blank. So let's just get going. We'll pull in that strategic profile. Now that's the one that I was editing before. And the other thing was we'll bring in our focus question generator. Now we could not actually enter in any problem situations or goals, and what it will do is analyze the strategic profile and start to look at what the problems are and put what it suggests might be 3 good questions. But in this case, we're really concerned about technology disruption. Perhaps a board member or someone's asked us, what's our plan to overcome any future technology disruption. So let's just hit generate there. And you can see it's come up with some pretty good questions, and what we're asking the language model to do in this sense is to develop what are known as propelling questions. So these are questions that are going to help propel us towards a solution. So let's pick this middle one: innovative digital solutions to enhance client-centered care while navigating regulatory compliance. So we'll go ahead and create the focus question node. Now you could create multiple of these, so I could undo these ones, and you can see I've got a bit of work to do on the layout. So you could have 2 different focus questions, and you could go down 2 different avenues of investigation if you wanted to. So that option's always there if you want to have a broad look, but today we're just going to keep it pretty constrained to keep it simple. Now you can also edit this question. You could also start this process at the focus question if you like. What I'm trying to get towards is a really flexible way of stringing together these different nodes, so that each node does a job and you can connect it to other nodes, and bringing all those nodes together then gives you something useful. So we'll create a trend scan. Now that's going to do a scan based on the strategic profile and the focus question. So this is something else that I've done, is make it just really explicit about where the information that's going into each node has come from, and what it is. And we've now got this left panel, which will be where all of the options and kind of action buttons and that kind of stuff will go. So let's do a search for trends. We can see we've got some ones that are relevant to digital health. Let's pull in workforce shortages and accelerated digital transformation. I'm not really paying much attention to these because I'm just trying to show you guys how things are all hanging together. So let's create the scenario generator. Now this has had a bit of work done to it as well. We've got multiple different kinds of scenarios. So I've only implemented the 2x2 in a scenario field. Later we'll be working on the 4 archetypes. So that's collapse, transformation, discipline, and continuation. And there's some other variations that I'm looking at. So there's a 6 archetypes approach, which is based on science fiction film narratives. If there's any kind of approaches that you want to see, certainly let me know, and we can implement them here. So I just wanted to actually show just the scenario field, because that's typically considered an approach that's kind of too costly to run unless you're running a huge project. And interesting thing about running stuff through AI models is that they are extremely good at putting ideas together and being tirelessly creative. So you can see it's come up here with 8 different scenarios. Now I could check off all 8. We could run all 8 through. I could check off just individual ones. And what they are is where those bullet points are is different combinations of some of the key uncertainties or drivers that it's found when analyzing the trends. So I don't want to do the scenario field today. I actually just want to show you the matrix because it's a little bit more common, a bit more understandable. So please excuse the please generate. That's just a leftover, placeholder. We'll have help content here explaining how things will work soon. But the next step is to analyze the trends for the key uncertainties. Now that's looking at both the trends themselves, but then also the strategic profile. So you can think of the strategic profile as like the lens that everything's being looked at through. And it's helping localize some of this information, which is really going to make it much more useful. So we were concerned, original question, if you recall, was innovative digital solutions for client-centered care and regulatory compliance. So let's make sure that we're picking our key uncertainties around that. So regulatory compliance and digital transformation. Now we could pick off different other ones. Now the thing with the 2x2 matrix is you can only have 2 uncertainties, so we kind of constrain it to those 2. And then let's generate some scenario titles and see what we come up with. Now you can see that it is orienting these across the different matrix quadrants. So this is the high, this is high-low, regulatory is high, this is high-low where digital is high, and this is the low-low. Pretty standard approach. Let's create the scenario nodes. Now, you might have noticed this is getting a bit cumbersome to kind of manage, and these nodes are overlapping, and I can fix that up. But the other thing I've been working on is a layout engine that I'm hoping will actually auto-apply, but I haven't turned that on, so that button doesn't work at the moment. But what it will do is automatically lay out things. So you can see it's spread out all the nodes. We can tighten things up. So it's something I'm playing with. I'm not sure if I want to have that run every time a new node is added, because sometimes it kind of becomes disorienting. But I'm not too sure. If you got strong feelings about it, let me know. Happy to take any feedback. So let's just zoom into our scenario itself here. So I'll get right out of the way. So we can see that this is the low-low scenario, and we've got a bit of a description of what the narrative is going to look like. So let's just generate that. Now in future, I'm thinking of adding a few different dials or different options to change what we might see here. Now I'm having a few troubles with the generation. Let me just confirm what's going on here. Yeah, so something weird's going on. Luckily, it's pretty easy to recover from. So a little bug to sort out. Now, here's our scenario. It is a narrative scenario, so it's telling a story in the day in the life of. And you can see it's created a character, created a role for that person, and created a future world for them. Now, we all know that narrative-based scenarios help us get, imagine ourselves in that future, and that's actually part of the benefit of a scenario development process, is that it's not just about trying to get to the answer, it's about expanding our minds and expanding our horizons. So I do think it's important, even though we'll whip through this and kind of get to an end state, that these things and these scenarios are stuff that we still pay attention to. Okay, so we've got our scenarios. Actually, let's just generate the other ones. So those are all coming through, hopefully. Yeah. Now, the next step after we've got the scenarios is to add an impact assessment, because we want to know what's going to happen to our organization based on what happens in these scenarios. So let me just connect these. This is a little bit cumbersome. So again, I'm trying to think of ways of making this a little bit easier. But the other thought I have is that if you make this too automated, it kind of takes away a little bit of your creativity and ability to connect different nodes. So you could have scenarios from a different focus question, and you could bring them in to this impact assessment node and try to see what happens to all of that. So we can see if we open up here, we've got our 4 scenarios, and we've still got our strategic profile there. Let's generate some impacts and see what happens. So here it's listing each scenario, it's telling you what the impacts are, and it's giving you some suggested strategic responses. So we can go through each of those. The other thing we could do is combine all the scenarios and generate a single set of strategic responses that work perhaps across all scenarios. So let's have a look here. We wanted to get handle our workforce, we need a more innovation, and it said patient-centric digital transformation. That's kind of what we're looking for, but I'd probably say more client-centric. Patient's more of a hospital term, but anyway. Now let's take these strategic responses and create some courses of action. Now, courses of action are a way of describing, I guess, an approach. It's not quite a strategy yet. It's more like an idea, and that's sort of why I've called it a course of action, because it's kind of like a thought, like we might go down this pathway, or we might not. And that's what we're going to do here, is have a look at kind of qualifying this idea. So patient-centric digital transformation, what does that mean? So we could start to go through here and enter some of what are the objectives that we might want to have. Of course, I'm going to make this super easy. We can just generate all of this information. It's a good starting part. We might want to start to edit these. That's no problem. We can just edit them, and this is an example of what I'm thinking around some of the options. So we could change, what's the boldness of this course of action? Is it fairly tame, or is it something that we want to do that's crazy? So let's think it's saying 10% improvement patient satisfaction 12 months. Now let's go to something that's really crazy. Oh, okay, only 15%. We might have a bit of work there to do on what it thinks is something that's crazy. But let's just go and create these 3 courses of action. So they're all done. Now the next step is to create a stress test node, otherwise known as wind tunneling. So this is going to take each course of action. Let me just connect it again. And now this is a good example of one where having manual connections is probably still a good idea, because we might want to bring in courses of action from different focus questions and even different scenarios to have a look at them in a holistic way. So we can open up the inputs. You can see it's bringing in the profile, the courses of action, and the different scenarios. And it's also reminding us what our focus question is. So it's digital solutions to enhance client-centered care while navigating regulatory compliance. And you can see it's got the strategic, the courses of action down the left side and the scenarios across the top. Now let's generate our stress test. Now for each intersection of the scenario and course of action, it is evaluating how well it thinks that course of action would perform in that scenario. And then we can click on each one and get a bit of an analysis as to why it thinks it's given it that score. And if you come down to the bottom, it'll give you some suggestions to improve performance. So in my case, Galaxy Care should focus on upgrading its technical infrastructure and provide extensive training to staff on new digital tools. So we probably need, in order to be successful in this scenario, we probably need something that's going to address that gap in technology. We can see in digital, we're looking pretty good, and this tech-driven tranquility is looking a little bit weak. Prioritize regulatory compliance and external partnerships to support digital transformation. So we can see that we've got a couple gaps here. I'm not saying that you want to get every intersection to be green. You might come up with a scenario that there's no winning position to be in, but I would suggest that you probably want to have some kind of coverage, or at least be approaching, these scores that are sort of towards 70. And that's really all I've got to show today. We try to cram in quite a lot. The next steps are to create the robust strategy. You can see right now it's blank, there's nothing there. And what that is going to do is take what is in here, so these courses of action, and start to put them together into what is a robust strategy. So being really clear about the choices that these courses of action entail, to be really clear about how we think that we're going to be successful in making these choices, and then be really clear about what's it going to take to make those choices reality. So you can see that's why we've pulled in things like the resources required. We can start to look at from each course of action, now try to consolidate and get these all into a single list, from which we can then use the robust strategy to work backwards from, develop other kind of strategic plans, and that kind of thing. So hopefully you've got a bit more of an idea of how this all hangs together. The development's progressing pretty well. I think we'll be in a good position in probably a month or so to start opening this up to letting some initial users have a play with, and then scale from there. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll talk again soon.